Welcome to Coach Garrett's exercise library, volume something, 4 or 5 or something. All right, grapevines. For grapevines, we're crossing back leg over front leg, or in front of and then behind. So these can be done with a lot of travel. Usually you would want to do them facing the same way, one direction and the other, so you can have different lead legs. We can also do these more like fast foot style, where we're taking smaller steps, trying to move the feet quickly, slow and low grapevine. So we're doing the same grapevine, we're just doing it more slowly, so getting the foot to come all the way down, and then we're trying to do these at lower heights, so closer to a squat, activating some good inner outer thigh stuff, so we're trying not to allow the knees to come in, but rather treating it a little bit more like a monster walk, down to like more or less full squat depth, trying to keep hips moving smoothly side to side. Barbell end tap shuffles. So with a longer bar, it's a little bit harder. The goal is to actually look at the writing on each end, come up for a shuffle, look, tap. We can actually tap with the opposite hand. That's going to help keep this a little bit more getting all the way to the end. And we can get down fairly low for that tap. I like to brace myself on the leg with a lot of these. Again, it's a little bit harder with a full length bar. And that's the idea. Seated extensions. We are training for power. So for our seated extension, we want to think about hitting full extension. So from my seated position, if my feet are really out here, I kind of have to use this big momentum. So rather, I want my feet to be kind of where they're going to be for pulling position, for pulling for a cleaner snatch. So tucked under a little bit, loading my feet entirely, and then extending fully through the hips. Being able to balance at the top is challenging, but we do want to try to hold that fully extended position if possible. Loading, fully extending, pausing. It is possible to add a jump, but it's really possible to jump without actually hitting full extension. And what we want more of is people to tune into that really full extension, ankles, knees, hips, even possibly shrugging at the top if they want to. So if possible, fully extending and holding, but just making sure we hit that full extension is more important than like a jump or something. Banded shoulder external rotation. Some people call these flashers. I think that's gross. So palms up, shoulders trying to be squeezed down in neutral. A very light band here, and one side at a time, thinking about squeezing out. So really keeping that shoulder down and actually trying to squeeze that shoulder back slightly with this elbow tucked in. We could even go so far as to put an ab mat under the arm to hold that. Trying to do both sides at the same time will usually end up with some extension through the back happening. So rather we want to focus on really good activation on one side for some reps, and then the other side. Again, a very light band is usually all that's needed for this. And making sure our shoulders are like coming up and our elbows are pulling up. Because I could do this all day and really miss the point of this strong external rotation, squeezing that shoulder blade down into the pocket, or like packing the shoulder blades. Assisted pistol. Using the rings, we're pulling the rings out so our arms are fully extended and the rings are right between shoulders and the anchor, and then we can warm up with some narrow stance squats here, and then bringing the feet right together. I can do my assisted pistol. It might take a little bit of like monkeying around with where the feet are to feel really confident. The further back, sort of the less mobility or range of motion I'm going to be required to do. But really, I guess people can take this to whatever range of motion they want to. It is possible to do some rowing to kind of help yourself up here also, but it's not necessary. We can also do target squats. So if I did have a box or something there, I could be assisted pistol to a target. That's like kind of high. We could use a ball and get this further back. The point is we're using the rings to assist ourselves in a pistol. Finally, Brugger stretch. I'm going to do this one right here. So if we really relax our upper body, what tends to happen is chin comes forward, upper back collapses, shoulders sort of round forward. So the Brugger stretch is just doing the opposite of that. So I'm stretching tall through the top of the head. It's going to pull my chin back. I'm rolling my shoulders down and slightly back to neutral, and then turning palms out. So the stretch is just holding this position for a certain amount of time. So we don't have to be cranked back, shoulder blades super squeezed back, and really rotated. I would think of this more as like just hitting some activation there and trying to be in good positions, and just holding that for some breaths. Even just holding these positions with activation gets hard because our body just wants to relax into these more rounded forward positions. So stretching tall through the top of the head, shoulders down in neutral, palms forward, thumbs out for that external rotation, and just holding gentle activation for breaths. Brugger stretch is what that's called. And finally, low lunge switches. So if I'm in a plank, I can step forward into a low lunge. I'm doing this elevated. That's a great way to scale this. And we can sort of noodle around in low lunge for a bit. Switching from one low lunge to another. On the floor, the low lunge is going to get a little bit deeper. And then step back to plank or step to down dog in low lunge. Or we can hop between low lunges. Working on hip mobility and some core activation and some shoulder stability and activation as well.